Hello and welcome back to the show. Today's episode is a very exciting redo of the presentation that I gave at the ESSA conference this year. I was asked to present on social media usage, especially in regard to how I have utilized Instagram as a way to build my virtual clinic. So I've put this presentation together. I've delivered it a little bit differently on the day. However, I wanted to share this with you. I've also got a slide deck that goes along with this. So if you are interested in watching along with the slide presentation, you can see that on YouTube. However, through the podcast, you will get the same general vibe. I hope this really inspires you to use social media and helps you eliminate all the barriers that you have around content creation at the moment. But otherwise, enjoy. Instagram has built me two businesses: Her Exercise Physiology, a fully virtual women's health clinic, and Her Education, the new women's health professional development marketplace. Now, it wasn't my website, it wasn't GP referrals, it wasn't really word of mouth, it was Instagram. Now, why did I go down the Instagram marketing pathway and not choose the normal pathway of referrals? Reason number one, because the thought of trying to get past the practice manager, then deciding on what lunch to take for the GP meeting, then trying to sell myself as a women's health exercise physiologist and convince them that they should be referring to me over a women's health physiotherapist, to then be referred a client with type 2 diabetes who's on a care plan with only one session allocated to exercise physiology, who thinks that the service is actually going to be like free, sounded absolutely horrendous to me. So I thought, hey, maybe I could just video myself to music, post it on my Instagram page, and hope that people want to work with me. And it did. It worked. Reason number two, I believe that showcasing who you are, what you stand for, who you help, and how you help people is one of the strongest ways to build a brand reputation that people really want to be a part of. So whether you are a clinician looking to grow maybe a personal brand, or you're a business owner who wants to build the brand around your clinic, social media, especially Instagram, gives you a platform to reach potential clients who really want to be part of your work, who aren't worried about getting a referral. Now, I really wanted to find some solid research on social media use and health-related content searching, but most of the research that I actually found dated back before 2020, and we know that these platforms drastically change even overnight, and I just found that this was unreliable. So I did some unofficial data collection myself, and I polled my audience on Instagram and asked them two questions. Number one, have you ever scrolled Instagram for information about your own health? Question number two, when you're thinking of seeing a health professional, do you check to see if they have a social media presence, scroll through their content before deciding if you'll book in with them? Now, I personally do that before I even check the website. I find that this gives me a much deeper insight into who they are, what their knowledge is, and whether or not I like the person, which I think is really important for healthcare. So I really wanted to see if that was the same. Obviously, there's a lot of bias in this health unofficial data collection, but I did it anyway. And this was the results. To question one, using Instagram to search content related to health, 52% of people said yes. 34% said sometimes, and only 14% actually said no. Now, question number two is about, stalking a provider, pre-booking in. 33% said yes, they always check. 45% said sometimes they'll look, and only 22% said no. I think is so interesting. Now, during the ESSA conference, I also polled my professional audience, so the Her Education Instagram profile that I have. And the results were astoundingly similar, which I was also extremely surprised in. So even health professionals use social media to search for health-related content in relation to themselves, and also check out a provider before even booking in with them. So I think there's one really key takeaway from this, is that social media is actually your second website. If not, in some cases, it can even be your first. So when someone tells me that they don't use social media in their business or to promote their own work as an EP or just a general clinician, this is me. These visual platforms give you the chance to show who you are, what you do, what your core values are, who you help, what your team is like, what the vibe of your clinic is like, and it's all in just one place. Social media, and especially Instagram, is an opportunity to showcase your brand and market your services to multiple audiences. It's an opportunity not to be missed, and you are leaving so much potential on the table if you are not utilizing it. Now, let's talk about who these audiences are that you are showcasing your brand to. Audience member number one, potential clients. Why you're all here listening, obviously. Audience member number two, other EPs and health professionals. Now let's dive into audience member number one. Let's pretend that this is Bob. And Bob frequently searches health-related content and he comes across your social media page. He has now opened the window into everything you do. He's found you based on what he's already looking for. He starts to read your content. He starts to see your images. He starts to watch your videos. He's hearing your voice and he gets insight into your personality and whether or not he likes you. And he begins to build this relationship with you and your services. And you don't really even know he's there watching. Now, when you are posting on social media, it is so important to highlight the stories of your clients, making them the heroes of your content. Now, why? Because when you share a client doing exercise and your follower, Bob, is watching along, in the early stages of behavior change, they are slowly building self-efficacy. So if Jim, your regular member, can attend gym classes and lift weights like he's 20 and you're posting it online, and Bob sees this while he's scrolling, he's going to start to think, wow, if that guy can do it, maybe I can too. And he's going to move further down the behavior change pathway. And he might even decide to pick up the phone, call you, and book in and start his health journey with you. So, what about audience member number two? The health professional who is either stalking you to steal your business ideas or copy your content, or maybe a future employee, or maybe even a potential referring healthcare professional. Imagine if your social media profiles could help you build relationships with referrers by showcasing your knowledge and services to them, but also help you employ like-minded EPs who fit perfectly within your business. Imagine your brand being so strong you can advertise through your social media and EPs want to come and work for you. They know who you are, what you are about, how they can see themselves working in your clinic based on how you've presented yourself on social media and what your brand reputation is like. This is something that cannot be communicated through those traditional employment pathways like Seek ads. Now, for me, my Instagram started as a way for me to promote my services to provide to private paying clients. I used content creation paired with marketing strategies to build a clinic of entirely private paying clients. From doing this, I built a pretty strong reputation as a women's health EP and developed referral-based relationships with other practitioners who found me on social media. Sharing my knowledge created demand from fellow EPs wanting to learn more about women's health and led to the launch of the mentorship program. And this is for the exercise physiologist wanting to dive into women's health, specifically around pelvic health. Now that has now grown into Her Education, this platform here, building in the back end a professional development platform with a range of education to really, truly help providers be exceptional within women's health. And the last thing that has come about from having a strong social media presence and a brand, I guess, is the opportunity that I had to present this topic to other EPs at the ESSA conference. And that's something that I never, ever thought would be actually possible for me. And none of it would have ever happened without my Instagram page. Now, before we dive into the how-tos of content creation, I want to share with you one big mistake that I made when I first started intentionally posting. Trying to be like every other women's health professional because I thought that is what you had to do to be successful and make it work. And this was everything from what my branding and colors looked like. I posted so much stuff about pre and postnatal care, and I talked about Kegels solving all your problems to pelvic floor health, which we all know isn't the answer. And all of this is just not me at all. I did not resonate with the pregnant women or postnatal mums. I didn't really like it either, to be honest. And I didn't really want to sell the idea that Kegels actually worked. And it wasn't until I actually started being me and creating content around the brand identity that I wanted everyone to know me by, did I see real growth in both my page, but also conversions into clients. So, my biggest tip for you, even though it sounds so lame and you hear it all the time, is just don't be like everyone else. Be authentic to you. Okay, so I've probably convinced you now that Instagram is something you need to be utilizing. And now you're thinking, like, how do I do this? Now, the common complaints that I generally hear about content creation are I don't really know what to post. I often, how often should you post? It takes me way too long. Every time I get caught up in the design, I just try and make it perfect and then I don't end up posting it. I'm too scared to post. But all of those are actually just barriers. Now, we need to approach content creation similar to how we program exercise for our clients. Now, if imagine this is Bill here, imagine if Bill came along to your clinic and he said, I've been told that I need to start doing some exercise. Can you just write me a program? You wouldn't tell Bill he has to exercise 7 days a week at high intensity for 60 minutes each time. No, you wouldn't do that. You would say, all right, Bill, we need to start with something that is quite achievable for you, maybe 2 days a week, small workouts. We're going to keep it really simple. And the key, Bill, is to be consistent for a long period of time. Exercise is the long game. You might even say to him, we need to make it really easy for yourself, Bill. We have to remove all the barriers that are going to stop you from doing it. You might even habit pair with things that you do regularly to remind you to do it. And you might also say, Bill, exercise doesn't change everything after one session. You have to keep doing it, show up regularly, and in the long run, you'll see the results. This is the exact same advice I'm going to give you. So, we're going to create a content plan using the social media fit principle. And you should know what that is if you're an exercise physiologist. And if you don't, then you're in the wrong place. All right, so let's get started. Frequency. How often do you post? Now, in reality, if you've got the goal of creating a really if you want to go all in and you really want to use it well, then you should do as much as possible, really, at the end of the day. But in reality, that is sometimes so unrealistic, especially if you're a business owner or you're a sole trader and you're trying to do all the things. I think 2 feed posts per week is pretty good, posting regularly. But the key is in the stories. Showing up on stories regularly. This is where your warm audience is, and this is where you really build connection with people who are already a little bit more bought into you than the people just looking at your feed. So, as much as you can on stories, set yourself a goal of maybe 2 posts per week if you haven't already started. And if you have started, be consistent at that frequency. So, if you've chosen 2 times a week, make sure you do it every time. If you've chosen 3 times a week, do it every time. Stick to that. Now, intensity, I like to think about this as in how complicated do you make your content? How much depth do you go into? Is it deep dive into research, sharing all the ins and outs? Or is it maybe just a little bit of highlight reel where we're showcasing a client win for that week and how exercise is super important for that person's function and it can be for you too? Maybe it's just a little motivational quote to get people, up and moving. Now let's talk about time allocation. This is important. You're going to put it in your diary, exactly like every other task that you do as an EP or a business owner. You might be allocating an hour a week. It could be 4 hours monthly where you do batch creation that you can then schedule out for the rest of the month. It is really important that you do not negotiate this because it is exactly like every other business task. It is marketing, especially if you're using it as a marketing strategy. So put it in there and don't ignore it. Schedule it in, just like you're telling your clients to schedule their exercise session in. Now, the type, this to me is format, choice of how you deliver. So this could be something like a static post. It could be carousels. It could be infographics, reels, and you can basically choose which ones that you prefer to do. So you could rotate between a reel and a carousel each week if you choose to do two. You could also pair that with a particular topic that you're talking about. So reels could be highlights of your clients, carousels could be more educational based or highlighting more the role of exercise in particular health conditions or something like that. You don't have to do it that way, but I find that really easy. So each week, that's what you're doing. Now, I want you to think about each post similar to the exercise choice inside the program that you give your client. Every exercise has a purpose. So should your content. Every time that you create a piece of content, I want you to ask yourself, what is the purpose of this piece of content? And how does it add to what my overall goals are for using social media within my work? So is this piece of content about educating the audience about exercise and its benefits? Is it aiming to motivate and inspire them to prioritize their own health? Or maybe it's to market and sell your services and encourage them to inquire and work with you. Maybe it's even a combination of all of these things. But if it doesn't have a purpose, if you can't answer that question when you post it, then it's not really worth posting because we do not want to just post it for the sake of posting. It has to be purposeful, especially if we're only limited to maybe 2 a week. Now, step 2 is about removing the barriers. So the first thing that I really want to address here is the fear barrier, because nearly every clinician that I've spoken to about sharing content online is always saying how scared they are to post. And when we really break it down, every time that fear comes from a place of judgment from other health professionals who are going to, they're worried about being called out for being wrong, which is incredibly sad. And now we could dive into why other clinicians feel the need to actually do this. But in reality, the content that you are posting is to help people decide if they want to work with you. So the person that you are worried about judging your post is probably never going to be a client of yours. They will never be a good fit as an employee within your business, and they're probably never going to refer to you. So don't let them stop you from reaching someone in your audience who is actively seeking help for their health that can get help from you. Your piece of content could be the turning point in their life to seek help and change how they're living. It could change everything. So don't let that fear stop you. Try and see it more as who you are speaking to, and just remember that person on the other end reading your content needs your help. Now, the next barrier is usually based on what to actually post, coming up with the ideas and creating the posts themselves. Now, I have 4 solutions that I use, which is extremely beneficial for content creation. Number 1 is content idea bank. You're going to create this. So every consult that you have with a client is sprinkled with potential content posts, probably thousands, if I'm really honest. The education that you give them, why they are doing the particular exercise you've given them in their programs, maybe the win that they had from their last block of programming. You can create a list of all of these things. They're all potential post ideas. And what you can do is start adding to it over time so that you develop this database of content ideas. If you have staff, you could give them access to this. It could be like a spreadsheet where any time where someone is going to create content, you are not stuck in this like, oh, what am I going to post? I don't have an idea. You have an idea bank that you just go to, pull out the idea and post away. The second thing is you're going to design templates. Now, I personally use Canva for all of my design work, and I've created a bunch of templates that are infographics, carousel posts, and a text-based quotes. And all it's done is all the design work is already done in multiple variations of what that looks like. And all you have to do is pull your idea from your content idea bank and plug it into the template, or use the template to not get caught up in the design work. So the initial designing could take a while. However, once you've done that, you just plug and play, and it is so much easier. Now, barrier number 3, or solution to barrier number 3, is creating a B-roll album. Now, this is an album where you start storing photos and videos to use in the future. This could include videos or photos of group classes. It could be clients doing exercise. It could be instructional exercise videos that you've done. It could be team meetings with your staff, like behind the scenes of running the clinic, or clinic life. It could be, essentially, it's basically a folder full of the imagery that you can use to create content when you actually don't have much time. So it's what we call the filler footage over the top, where you can then voice over or just have music over the top or have text over the screen. So when you're coming to create your content, all you have to do is grab your idea from the idea bank and then plug it on top of B-roll footage. So it could be something about a client doing squatting. You've got a video of someone doing squatting. Boom, there's your piece of content. Much easier than going, I have to go film all this stuff. And over time, you'll just have all of this album growing and growing and growing. Now, the final tool that you can utilize is ChatGPT or AI or whatever version that you use. Now, this is extremely helpful for idea generation, but also caption writing. I find with the right prompts, you can really generate some effective content that doesn't take 3 hours to produce and refine. And realistically, you can change the tone of this. So, whether you want it to be quite funny, whether you want it to be educational, professional, whether you want it to be more marketing and sales based, lead to client conversions, things like that. So really play around with using this to create your caption. This is a big game changer in terms of time. Now, obviously double check everything because it's not always correct, but as you start to teach it things, it's going to be super, super helpful. And I'm sure many of you are already using this, but just to refine, like the process of creating content can be as simple as idea bank, plug it into ChatGPT for your caption, plug it into your design templates, use your B-roll album, and it can be super, super, super quick. Very easy. Now, the famous question is about, should you niche? I get this question all the time. Now, my clinic is 100% women's health. So I've actually niched down even further into pelvic health conditions. And because I use Instagram as a main form of a marketing strategy for me, I've niched it down even further in terms of pelvic health into pelvic pain, endo, and pelvic floor tightness. Now, this is because every piece of content that I post needs to speak directly to the people in the audience. So they can then relate to the symptoms that I talk about, the challenges of living with that particular symptom. Their dream outcomes are all very similar. I aim to basically hold their attention every single post. Now, if I was to start throwing in a topic like diastasis recti, which is technically a women's health concern, this does not resonate with the majority of the people in my audience who have pelvic pain or endo. They may cross over and have both, but generally they don't care. And neither does someone with diastasis who's wanting to close their gap care about endo problems because they might not have it. So it doesn't make sense to throw a lot of these different topics out there. Now, this is very different for me because that's how my clinic works. But if I was working in person and I was more of a generalist, which I feel like a lot of you are listening to this, and maybe you do see women's health clients, but you're generally more a generalist, generally, yeah, whatever, then it would be very, very hard to niche down into a particular health topic. However, if you are going to use Instagram as a way to bring in new clients, maybe you have to really think about how your particular service or clinic solves the problem for the person watching, which is usually related to, where do I go to get help? Where's the place where I fit in? So themes that I would be including in my content plan, if I was more of a generalist with an in-person clinic, would communicate how my clinic is a place to exercise that is not a gym and how it's different to that. That's a really big problem area for a lot of people. They think they need to get help from a personal trainer or a gym, and in reality, they need to see an EP. I would be communicating how the staff understand limitations of exercise for people with health conditions, and programming is 100% personalized to the needs of that client. I would also be talking a lot about how the place is a place that's embedded with connection and community, where members know each other, especially if you're in group scenarios. I would be really sharing a lot of education about exercise and its role in healthcare and chronic disease management, and that should not be overlooked. And I would also share stories of clients, why they started coming in the first place, how they feel being there, and things that maybe have changed. So if you really, really don't know where to start, the first place to get some ideas and start posting about is asking your current clients, why did they choose to come to you in the first place? You're going to use their exact words and their phrases to communicate to the people in your audience on social media who are also feeling exactly like them, decide to book with you. So you use their words, take their phrases, take their words, plug it straight into your templates that you have or straight into your content. And this will resonate with so many people in your audience that already feel like that. That's the best way to start. So I would start there, start using your clinic experience or sessions in consults as more idea generating sessions, writing them all down and collecting them over time. So to follow up, to wrap this up, shall we say, content is exactly like exercise prescription. You're going to start really small and achievable for the person in front of you. That's you. You're going to be really consistent. You're going to eliminate all of your barriers. You're going to master all the basics. And then as you do it more regularly, you will get better, you will get faster, and it will feel much more natural. I hope this gives you some motivation to start using Instagram as a way to communicate your value in this world. You have so much potential to change people's lives, and this is one really underutilized way to promote that within our industry. So I hope this has helped. Go out there and start creating content. Bye.